Brown 45. Brown 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, the Gridiron Australia headquarters, and up in Winnipeg still, which is huge. Normally joining me is my reliable TC24 and Danny Webb. Danny will be joining us shortly after he's a little bit stuck at work, but Karts is not here due to his own family reasons, which I'm sure he'll share with us very soon. But we are joined by 2 Australians that are absolutely dominating over in America. They're 2 brothers that have made it from Victoria all the way to the big time in the US. One of them's a punter that's made it to the very top. And I don't know if you actually knew this stat, but you're the 10th Australian to make it onto a field during an NFL game, which I thought was pretty huge. And the other is the current punter for the University of Kentucky, Mr. Jordan and Mr. Wilson Berry. How are you 2 boys?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure having you 2 join me. But did you know that stat, Jordan, that you were the number 10 to actually get on the field during a snap?
Yeah, I knew I was sort of up the front. Didn't know exactly what number, but yeah, hadn't really been a whole lot of guys to try to come over when I first started looking at it. So, yeah.
I knew there was a few, especially back in the 80s and 90s, but 10 seems very, very low, I thought. I thought there was a few more than that, but I reckon that's awesome.
Yeah, because when I was looking at coming over initially, it was, Sav, Rocco, Ben Graham, and McBride were the 3 that were over here. And apart from that, didn't really hear much about anybody. So
yeah, and then like Bennett and stuff back in the day. But
probably at the time, there was only a very small amount of guys that had made the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first question for you boys, we're going to get straight into it, is where did bangers come from, Wilson?
Yeah, it was actually on high school. We did a footy trip. We were playing at a few schools in Darwin, and obviously we were bussing everywhere, and it was taking hours. So I ended up at the front of the bus, and I was playing all the tunes for the bus. So yeah, all the boys were like, put on another banger, and and then it was actually one of the teachers at the time who was driving the bus. He's like, oh, bangers berry, and then just really stuck from there, and here we are.
I do love that in doing a little bit of research about both of you, it comes up with Wilson Bangersberry joins UK. Like, I reckon that's awesome.
Yeah, hopefully, you see all the old school players, like their murals are up on the wall everywhere, and always has a really cool nickname. And I was like, I really want to bring that back, that tradition of having a nickname that takes over.
No one will know who Wilson is, but bangers, absolutely. No, awesome. The thing that the 2 boys like to give me a bit of shit about asking, but I always like just to break the ice with everyone, is finding out just 3 people that you guys would have at a dinner party.
You go first, mate.
You go first. I'd probably say like my wife and son, and I don't know. The third one, I don't know why. I've been doing a lot of health stuff lately, and if we could bring him back, but like Tom Hafey, sort of the fittest man alive. I mean, if just to get his insight on what health and fitness is all about. But yeah.
You'll have to do a 5K before you have dinner, though.
I was joking around saying I just like eating by myself, so I'm just to keep it to me. So
surely you've played with a lot of big names. There's no one that you'd bring back and at a dinner, or have you eaten with them too many times? You don't want to eat with them anymore.
Definitely. When you're on the team, so having those good group meals and that all. Definitely miss all that. But cutting it down to 3 is a bit tricky in that sort of environment. Usually, like the night before the game, we'd all go to the hotel early and all crowd around. Usually end up with like 15 guys on a table for 8, and we're all just sitting around just cracking jokes and talking all night. It's, that's the one big thing I miss about playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were both, like I said at the start, you were born in Victoria, but you spent some time up in Brisbane, is that right?
Yeah, we moved around. So, I was born in Melbourne. I lived there until I started school, and I actually started school out in Ballarat. I was there till year 3, and then moved up to Brisbane. I was there from year 4 to year 8. So I went to Sherwood Primary and Brisbane State High for year 8. And then you were born in what, Ballarat?
Yeah, in Ballarat. Yeah, I was a year old when we moved up to Brisbane, so...
You don't remember it very much?
Yeah, I don't remember Ballarat at all, but I mean, I've been to Sovereign Hill and stuff since, but yeah, I remember like Brisbane growing up for sure.
Yeah, did that. Then 2 years in Perth, and then I was back in Melbourne for 2 years before I came over here, and then he obviously spent a lot more time in Melbourne after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was it like growing up in the Berry household? Because you're about 5-6 years apart. Is that right?
Probably further than that. What, 8? I think.
Further, 8 years.
Yeah, we got.
Yeah, 6. I'm 25.
I think I might be thinking of Boston. Yeah. I got 3 younger brothers. Get the times all mixed up, but it's pretty hectic having 3 younger brothers in the house. Like, at least for my end, I was looking after them quite a bit and babysitting me and Lachlan, the other oldest, with the younger 2, Wilson, Oscar. But yeah, 4 boys in one house, pretty hectic.
Pretty cramped. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Was it because you were both pretty handy footballers growing up? You both played through the TAC Cup, and Wilson, you went on to play in the VFL. Was it always football, or was there other sports you used to get around as well?
Yeah, I mean, like football is always number one. Like we used to, like our dad Jace used to joke around that like people go to church on Sundays, but that's when junior footy's on, so that was our church. So yeah, it was pretty much always footy, but like we were never stuck in one sport. I felt like we always tried different things, and whoever was playing whatever in the neighbourhood would always join in. Like I remember growing up in Queensland, like it was always like rugby in the backyard with the neighbours. So like, if that's what they were playing, then we had to join in. It wasn't a choice at that point.
Yeah, because him and Oscar played a lot of basketball. Oscar is actually playing Division 1 basketball right now down in Florida. And then I played in Queensland. We're up there. I played rugby for 2 years. Wasn't real good. I was pretty skinny when I was a kid, so I was going to get snapped in half. But gave it a crack.
What position were you?
They usually just stuck me on the wing because could stay out of trouble because I wasn't too good in the run and scrums and that sort of stuff. But every now and then when they needed someone to rip a big kick, that work out a way.
Yeah, that's it. So that's really played well going forward, then, hasn't it? But so at what point did you know about the NFL growing up, and what point did you think, you know what, punting can be a serious option going forward?
Yeah, so this is really before he was even around. When we were living in Ballarat, my dad was our dad was looking at trying to come over. So that was in the late 90s. He bought a few balls and was kicking them around, having a bit of practice. But like he's already sort of doing his undergrad. He's looking for a way to get further school paid for. But really, by the time he found out about it, it was pretty much too late to really jump on board. But he had those balls, and they were just sitting around, and we used to always play with them when we were kids. And later on, once I sort of found out about it, once I was more in high school, like maybe year 9 or 10 is when I started to really lock in on it. Sort of worked out what you could get from it. Like, you see the NFL and then you start seeing, they've all come from colleges and that, and you start working out what college football is, and, you can get all that stuff paid for. So I think that's a pretty good avenue to start researching a bit. And then you got talking with the old man, and he's pulled all the balls out and had a bit of chat about what he knew about it. So, yeah, that definitely helped.
Yeah, so from a young age, it was really, did you follow the sport, or was it just purely from dad?
Yeah, no, I didn't follow it. It was just, you just knew it was a thing. And then, it wasn't really until high school I actually started really looking into it. Like, I'd seen the balls and stuff, but hadn't really actually looked at the sport until year 9 or 10 for me. And then, obviously, these guys, they grew up with me pretty much being over here. Yeah.
Yep. And you're both products of our good friends of the show, Pro Kick. How did you get involved with them to start with?
Yeah, so initially I was, I ordered a few more balls and was just kicking by myself. Once I got into year 12, when it was starting to look like, TFC footy wasn't really going to work out well for me. I was on the team, but it wasn't really getting much of a run. And, at Calder at the time, I had a couple of real strong players, and so we got to see what it would take to get drafted. I was like, I don't know if I'd be able to match that level of fitness and stuff. So that's when I really looked at American football. And at the time, Jason was working with Essendon. He was in the sports science department back then with Matty Knights and Kevin Sheedy during that period. And so we were around the building a lot. I'd kick on the field, and one of the guys, I think it was in like the advertising department, so their windows would look out over the field. So he knew I was into it, and somewhere along the line he had heard about Nathan, and then he passed on his info to Jace, who passed it on to me, and then went out for a kick with him one day, and he was like, stay around. And at that time, Nathan was really just starting out. He didn't have anyone signed up with. I think he maybe had 1 or 2 guys signed up with him, and it's a bit of a learning experience for everybody at that point.
Yep, yep. And so, how did you actually find the whole thing? If it, like you said, real early days. Now they've got it down to a fine art, but contacting. Were you involved in contacting the colleges and things like that back then?
Yeah, so everything was just trying to work out from square one. Like Nathan was pretty upfront, like he hadn't done before. He wasn't sure if that was going to work out, either the recruiting or his business. And it was just like, hey, I'm giving this a shot. This is what I'll charge for my time, and I'm going to give it. It's like he was going to give his best to try and get his business off the ground and help us out. But yeah, it was everything. Like we're trying to work out what's the best way to film a punt, what's the best technique to put on film to have coaches look at it seriously. So all that sort of stuff. And then when it came to recruiting, so it was me, Tom Dynam, and Alex Tanaki. So 3 of us, and then a couple older guys. We went to some camps, one in Vegas, one in San Francisco. Punted at those, and so that company, the guy who owns it, used to go to EKU, so he helped with the connections through to EKU, and that's how I ended up over there. But yeah, they got, like, Alex went to Hawaii and Tom went to Portland State up in Oregon. So yeah, they both had a good 4-year career, and I managed to stick on a little longer.
Alex is we actually work with Alex, and we're trying hard to get him on the show, but he's been a little bit tough to get on, but we'll get him on, don't you worry.
Yeah. Yeah, he had cannon back when we were younger. He was definitely the best out of a lot of us when we were first starting out. He was had a cracking league.
Yeah, well, I think it's going over to Hawaii. I don't know if that helped or hindered him, but it seemed to help you going to EKU. So,
I think being one of the small schools, there wasn't a whole lot going on. I think if I'd have gone one of those bigger schools, we could have been in some trouble.
Yeah, yeah, I think he's got a few stories to talk about, but that's his episode, not yours. Yeah. So, was it a case of following in Jordan's footsteps, or did you just see the success that he had and think it was a no-brainer just to follow through with where Jordan went?
Yeah, it was something like always in the back of my mind. Like obviously, like growing up, we spent heaps of time together, and like he would pump footballs, and like I'd come watch, and so I knew sort of the basics of it, and I made sure I did all my schooling right to make sure I was eligible. But yeah, first love was footy, and I wanted to give that a good crack before I came over here for sure.
And so, what was it? Because you were playing VFL. Like for those who don't know, it's a pretty high standard of footy. What was the turning point to say, I'm going to go try punting?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of started like after CAC Cup. I thought I was pretty close to making it to the next level, and yeah, sort of once you get to VFL and you're playing against grown men, it's going to take a few more years to sort of get back to that level. So I sort of knew that it was going to take me at least 3 years to get back and have a sniff, and yeah, it just got to the point where a few injuries and form was down, and yeah, thought punting there'd be a lot less running involved, so I thought I'll give that a go.
I imagine pre-season for the punters is a hell of a lot different. Jordan, I reckon you could probably speak to this a lot more, especially in the NFL. Is it a hell of a lot different to all the other positions?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, some of the other guys will come in and over the space of camp, they can drop 25, 30 pounds, and depending on what coach you've got, you can. Some coaches will make guys punt a lot, and you'll get more out from punting, but in terms of all that extra running and smacking around, and my friend, we got one of my teammates that he knows, he'd lose 20 pounds in a practice, and we're not dealing with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, shit, yeah.
But that's the problem. Like, you go into camp and they feed you better because everyone else is sweating it out. So I always end up putting extras like 10 pounds on during camp when everyone else is losing. So it looks pretty bad on that part.
Sounds like a camp I want to get involved in. And then college did swing around, and Jordan, you went to EKU, Eastern Kentucky, and Wilson, you're at the University of Kentucky. Is there a rivalry there at all?
No, EKU is like the poor little brother of UK. Like, it's pretty much like you get into UK. If you can't get into UK, then you might try another big school. And if you can't get in there, then you give EKU a call. So, it's not really a rivalry there. Like, EKU is very strong at football in the division that we play in. Long, strong history in that respect. But yeah, compared to SEC football, like every other conference is, not even close. And especially when you drop a whole division down, it's a little hard to compete. Like, we'd have kids walking around campus and UK stuff and Louisville stuff, and really get on the nerves of some of the older coaches and the players that have been around the program for a long time.
He's definitely playing it down. He still hasn't worn blue to a single one of my games. yeah, I've heard like back in the day there was like a bit of beef, but yeah, obviously as time's gone on.
Yeah, there were a couple incidents if you search on Google around the time I was playing.
Incidents? Do we go into that, or is that something for a?
Yeah, no, it was the year after I left. There was a bit of trouble between the two football teams.
Were you involved?
No, I've gone. It was the year after I left.
Oh, right. That's a shame.
Nah,
fair. Speaking of rivalries and speaking of rivalries, I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but Wilson, I don't know if you know, but in your first 2 years of punting, if you compare each other, you're actually got a slightly bigger average than what Jordan did. Do you bring that up at all and throw it in his face?
Yeah, I don't know if you can count 6 games compared to 2 full seasons, but yeah, I mean, I'm tracking along all right, and yeah, I've still got time to. I feel like over a full career, as long as I get the better average, I'll be pretty happy with that.
He does have the bigger leg though. It was a 77, and then once you got in the NFL, a 79-yard bomb though from Jordan. I don't think you've hit that far yet, Wilson.
Not yet. Coming this year.
Yeah. No, yeah. A lot of the schemes that the guys run now are all drawn up by the coach I had back when I was at EKU. So yeah, I like to tell them all, like, you've got everything all ironed out, nice and smooth for you guys to fall into. You're not sitting there for a couple of years trying to work out how to make everything work.
And speaking of your parents that you brought up before, how do they feel? Like you said, you've got Oscar that's also down in Florida playing college hoops. How do the parents actually feel? You know, pretty much all the kids just leaving home.
Yeah, well, they actually joined us. They moved over here about 4 years ago.
There you go.
So, we've left one brother back in Australia. So yeah, he's the one that's been left behind. But yeah, Dad took the job at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. So he's their director of sports science. So for what he does, it's a real good job. They look after him really well down there. If you haven't seen that or heard of the place before, it's absolutely obscene, the facilities they have. So it's high school level, but they'll have professionals come there, train as well, and basically take the best NFL team or college team and then take those facilities, make 5 of them, put them on the one spot, the hotel in the middle, with a high school campus, and yeah, that's what you got for IMG. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, we've spoken to Tom Huber, who's a QB down there at the moment, and I think, was it Patrick Murtaugh who went through there just recently from the AFL?
Yeah. Jace actually works with that international pathway. So, he deals with all the Aussie guys that have been over. And, it's a cool program in the way that they're getting guys, from different positions into the league, for sure.
Absolutely. And we always ask people when they come on and all the players that how does it feel when you first ship off overseas and leaving family at home? But for the first time, we've kind of been able to see from your side, Wilson, what's it like having an older brother who leaves home and having him over the other side of the world, you know, chasing his dream, obviously, but having that from that side of the fence?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It was kind of tough. Like when he first left, that was kind of like when Skype was like very early. It was still working out all its different glitches and stuff. So, like, yeah, we might have talked to him maybe once a week, and it was pretty grainy and hard to understand. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool to see him go and do his thing. Like, we would log on to Greg Stoudemire, was the EKU radio broadcaster, and yeah, we'd log on to the radio at like 4 a.m. and catch his game. So it was pretty cool to sort of hear how well he's doing, and it was just a cool thing all around to see him doing his thing.
Did it make it easier for you when you made the decision to leave?
Like knowing sort of what's on the other side, it sort of takes away sort of that fear of the unknown, because I felt like I already knew what I was coming into. So, yeah.
And didn't have to worry about the graininess of Skype or Zoom. Zoom had come around by then.
Yeah, I mean, you can call anyone these days, so there's no real issues.
Yeah. Plus, like, guys coming over now, there's kids at like every school within like an hour or two of each other. So, like, you know, the other weekend he got married a little while back, and guys coming from all around the place, all the driving distance, come down and hang out for that. So yeah, it's definitely a lot easier for the guys now to get over here.
Yeah, for sure. And Jordan, you had a pretty successful career at Eastern Kentucky. In some of the stats I did find, which I found pretty fascinating, 2012, you led the punts inside the 20, and you had a long, like I just said, of 77 yards, which I don't think people realise how big that actually is when you've got to take into consideration the yards are only after the snap. Like, it's probably getting closer to 80 or 90 yards, that kind of punt, which is huge. How did you actually find that adjusting to life over in America coming from Australia?
Yeah, so like, yeah, as I was saying with them and knowing people around, he's got, they sort of know what's coming. When I came over, it was very different. Like, Chappie hadn't sent anyone over here. I got over at the same time as two other guys, but Tom was the closest over in Portland, Oregon, which is an 8-hour trip away by the time you get some layovers on your flight. So it's kind of just get thrown into small town Kentucky and find your way. I got real lucky. The coaching staff at EKU were absolutely fantastic. The head coach, Dean Hood, and then my special teams coordinator, Dane Dameron. I still talk to those guys, at least once every 2 or 3 months, have a good chat. They were really good to me, get me settled in. And then, the playing group as well. A lot of local guys that really took me in and helped me out a lot. A few of them still live in town around Lexington or the surrounding area, have them over, every month or so, have a big get-together with everybody and their kids and stuff. So I got really lucky on that side of it. You hear some horror stories from guys that come over and don't get along with their team or their teammates and coaches and stuff. But, I got the really good end of it with, really good all around. Then I also did a teaching degree. So I went for physical education, had a lot of good physical education teachers back in at Melbourne High that really helped me out. So I decided I want to go on that path. And then in that program as well, a couple of professors who they still go down to EKU games. So every time I'm back there, I catch up with them and have a beer or two. And the teaching group, I'll have them around the house as well with the football guys. So I got real lucky that every aspect of it, there's a lot of people that sort of took me in and helped me out. So got lucky.
And what about, I know, we've had Timmy Gleason on not that long ago, and just getting the insides. We're going to have Chappie on soon. The insides of how much they actually look into which college suits which person or which player these days. I'm presuming back then it wasn't quite a fine art. So being so lucky to fall into a situation where, did it suit your punting as well? Because they try and pick the Aussie to what kind of punter they are and send them to the right college as well?
Yeah, so now you've got schools that are, they like doing the rollouts, they want an Australian punter. They've got other ones that, want someone who's going to sit in the pocket and do pro style. So when I came over, that rolling out and everything wasn't really a thing. A couple of schools had tried it, but it wasn't as established as it is now. The schemes weren't drawn up. So I got, again, lucky in that the coaches were really on board with trying to work out what I could do and make the most of it. They saw it as a good opportunity to, pull me out there. So by the time I graduated, we had this weird scheme drawn up that if you're on the defense, it looked like we were running a completely different formation every week. So we were just chewing up other teams' time while they're trying to work out what we're doing, and it allowed us to run a lot of fake punts. So we didn't really run a traditional just you punting it. We ran option plays where I'm rolling out looking for a pass first or a run first and then going to punt. So a lot of my kicks were on the run, kicking along the ground in a gap. And it worked out well because we had one game, I think we ran 3 fakes in one game. And the coach didn't even call some of them because they were just automatic checks. If they line up like this, we're running it. There's no question. You just go like that. And we practiced it. So it worked out pretty cool. And then I don't know if you saw the punt pass I did where we passed it by punting it to a receiver. It was behind line of scrimmage. So that was an automatic check as well. So the defense just lined up in a certain formation. We just had to go with it immediately to make it work. And we did it. And it went pretty well. So Dean Hood, who was my head coach, who drew up a lot of that plays and really took advantage of what I could do, he's gone on and he's had a lot of good Australian punters now, both at EKU. He had a couple more after me, Keith Ruzak, Phil Richards, and then went out to Charlotte, I think, for a year, but he ended up at Kentucky. And so that's with Max Duffy, helped him with the Ray Guy Award. So a lot of the scheme that he ran with Max, he'd drawn up back when I was at EKU and really fine-tuned it over those sort of 10 years. So by the time he got with Max, it was real dialed in, and you get that sort of player out there. He did well, and then he moved on. He's now the head coach out of Murray State. Again, he's picked up another 2 Australians since he's been back out there. And so then the other coaches that come through Kentucky all sort of know about that system and scheme, and that's how Wilson ended up out there.
Yep, yeah. There is one game, speaking of all these checks, there's one game I want to ask in particular. It was on the 26th of October back in 2013 at Southeast Missouri. The score was 31-7 for a W for EKU, and Jay Berry crossed for a rushing touchdown. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so I was actually having a joke with my buddy a little while back. He asked about that game. So I don't know if you look at the stats, I think I averaged like 57 yards or something on punts, and then scored a touchdown. It was a good night. But yeah, so that one was their defense. They just had this guy that would get up and walk out the way on field goal and just left the gap wide open. So we had a plan for a guard to come loop around, lead block, and I think he tripped over. He didn't even make it to the hole, but they left it big enough that it was straight in the end zone. It was, kept running and, nearly hit the back fence.
Worst celebration in the world. He just kept going through the back of the end zone. Like Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump just what? But it comes through as a 25-yard rushing touchdown. Where to have the fortitude, the intestinal fortitude of the balls to be like, you know what, we're gonna go for this, and I love it really. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you like once you get to the lower levels like Division 2, like 1AA and Division 2, like the coaches don't have enough time to really be going over everything. Those top schools get paid $100,000, but some of those smaller schools, like some of the guys are on minimum wage or less, so they got to have other jobs as coaches as well. So if you find the right team, like they would have, if in the NFL, they would have seen that we ran a very similar thing the year before, but that week they hadn't kept up on their homework and out he went and I just went straight down the hole. So it's good deal for me.
Did you, once you made it into the NFL, and just turn around and be like, hey boys, I have scored a touchdown before. If you need me in the backfield, or we've got a trick play, I'm sure Coach Tomlin would have been all over it.
Yeah, he gave me a few, but they didn't end up very well in the NFL. Those guys were a little bit faster and a little more switched on. So I've ended up
They're
with
not just getting up and walking away during a field goal.
No, I just ended up with like separated rib. My neck's got a little crack in it, and then did my shoulder 4 times. So I try to stay away from that once I got to that level.
So was that the only career touchdown?
Yeah.
Wilson, do you have any under your belt yet?
Not yet. But well, the new coaching staff's promised me one by the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. It's pretty rare, obviously, special teams to have a play like that. So we'll see what happens.
And how have you found your time at Kentucky so far?
Yeah, I mean, you're in the thick of it. I feel like Kentucky's like a national brand, and there's a lot happening and different people flooding in and out. So I actually just finished up my Spanish class for uni, and my classmate was Rajon Rondo. So just crazy things like that are happening all the time. So it's pretty cool to be in the thick of it. And I remember before one of the games, I don't know if you know the rapper Waka Flocka, but he was like just hanging out in the players' lounge, and we were all just playing pool and talking the talk. And it's just guys like that you would never have the opportunity to ever see in Australia. So it's pretty strange.
How'd you go with the pressure of the likes of Rajon Rondo walking up and saying, "Look, I know you're Jordan Berry's brother," and and sticking friend of the show Max Duffy, like you've mentioned, coming before you. Did you feel any pressure coming in and filling that spot?
I mean, it's just you just got to be confident in your own ability and your own brand. And I big dogged Rondo. I said we have to do our introductions, and I said, "Oh, I'm on the football team," and you probably already know who I am. And sorry, who are you? He was a little taken back, and he had to introduce himself. So I was pretty happy with that.
Max mentioned when he came on that UK's predominantly been known as a basketball team more than a football team. Did you find that when you were there?
Well, this is crazy stuff. So you go through the facility, and there's like a 60-year gap between successful head coaches. So it was pretty strange. But anyway, there's a story that goes with it. So Bear Bryant, like the greatest coach of all time, who ended up at Alabama. So he was actually coach at Kentucky first. And Adolph Rupp was the coach of the basketball team at Kentucky. So now it's Rupp Arena. So they both won national titles that year. So Bryant and Rupp. And so they got Rupp a brand new car, a Rolls, and they got Bryant a watch. And so he said, if you're not going to take football serious, then I'm out of here. So he left and went to Alabama and won them how many national championships. So ever since then, we've been cursed, and it's not since Stoops has taken over the helm that we've had another 10-win season. So he's the curse breaker.
Were you there? There was a bit of a rivalry between Stoops and the coach too. Were you there then?
Yeah, between Coach Cal and Stoops. Yeah, so that happened last season. So yeah, the athletic director actually called an emergency meeting and told all our boys to settle down because it was getting a bit feisty on Twitter. So it's pretty rare that you get an emergency meeting from the athletic director, but that's what happened.
I love that it's getting feisty on Twitter, and that's when we're no longer going to fight it out. We're just going to use our words and really bring each other down.
Yeah, no, it was a strange time because I think, I mean, both teams probably weren't happy with their performances last year. So I think it's a good lesson in staying focused for sure.
And Wilson, do you ever lean on the likes of Max or Jordan, the fact that they've been in your shoes and lean on them for advice going forward?
Yeah, I mean, when Max was still at Kentucky, like we'd kick the three of us like all the time, and yeah, it was pretty cool seeing him going through that draft process. And yeah, Jordan was in the league, so it was good just to see, every facet of punting and where it leads and what the different focuses are at every level. So, having all those guys around me it's pretty cool experience for sure.
All right, so Jordan, let's go to the day. It was in April 2015. Pittsburgh signed you as an official NFL player. How is that feeling the day that all right, I've made it. This is where I want to be, and I'm where I need to be almost.
Yeah, so, well, the way the NFL works, you sign a contract, you haven't made anything yet. Those contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. So, yeah, you still got the whole of camp in summer, but it's definitely a good milestone when a day like that. So, I've been finished college to get any tries for anything. Like, again, I was saying before, with a lot of the scheme, with a lot of rollouts, a lot of options. So, for me to get through the NFL, they want to see those pocket pro-style punts. And I think I had 7 or 8 in the last 2 years I played. So, like, trying to get that and get recruited was very tough. So, I got not even a phone call the first 12 months. So, waited until my contract with my agent was up, fired him so I didn't have to pay him anything. And then, got a new agent. And so that guy had a couple of contacts. And through him, he got my video that I'd made while I was gone. I went back to Australia for 8-9 months and worked with Chappie the whole time. And we put together a couple of good recruiting tapes of me kicking back there off a joke machine and used that tape to get me the tryout up at Pittsburgh. And it was all pretty relaxed morning. Just go in there and it was a special teams coach and one of the trainers, and just kicked some balls for 20 odd minutes. And he's like, "All right, seen enough," and said, "Thanks for your time." And he headed off, and I was sitting there waiting to get back in the car to head back to the airport and fly home. But then Jam came down, and he actually had worked with my head coach from college, Dean Hood, who we talked about earlier. So he knew him, and we had a chat about him for a little while. And he's like, "Oh, come with me. I just want to get you to meet a couple other people while you're here." So I headed up and just dropped me off straight in Tom's office while he was talking to some rookies. And Tom was like, "Hey, how are you? How'd it go?" I was like, "Yeah, thought it went pretty well." I was like, "Cool, do you want to sign up?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." He's like, "All right, cool. Over to the next room." I was like, "Oh, sweet, there we go." So that was a really cool experience that day, and got signed up. Came back for rookie mini camp once all my paperwork got sorted out, and then just got to competing.
I think you've just glazed over that. Like, surely that moment when they're like, "Yeah, no, look, there's papers in the other room," you're just thinking, "Holy shit!" Like, I was sitting in the car going to the airport 20 minutes ago, and now I've just been signed up as a player. Like, surely you're on top of the world.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. Like, you go talk to him, you walk out of the room, and his secretary's saying, like, "Yeah, just move his flight back, 4 or 5 hours and take him in downtown for medicals." And it's just like, "Oh, okay, like, this is happening." Like, you sit there thinking about it the whole time you're going through college and everything for, plus that extra year. So it's been 7 or 8 years I've been working at it to get to that point was, very exciting.
And, like, when do you get back to mini camp, you start to meet some of the players, and is that a bit overawing as well? Yeah,
you roll into mini camp, and at that point, it's all rookies, guys have drafted, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the vets aren't there, so you don't see all those guys. But that day I'm in there, the biggest player on the team was working out the whole way too. So you get that sort of bit of an eye-opening look. Like, used to EKU guys were the biggest you're going to come across, 280, 290 pounds, and then you get there and there's a 6'10", 350-pound guy walking down the hallway. Like, oh shit, like, okay, like, these guys are different. It was mini camp straight into competition. So at that time they had 2 other punters already on their roster. So they had 2 of us in mini camp, and it was just go at it. Like, he punts one, and you got to punt one better. And Tomlin's really good at getting guys fired up and talking a lot of shit. So he'll just come stand behind you and really make sure everyone knows that he's watching, and get that competition rolling. And punted real well that day, and over that weekend, and got into the summer. So then they let the other guy go, and then it was just me and Brad Wing for the rest of the summer.
Yeah. And so when you finally get that call up and like, mate, you're starting this week, you'll be on the flight, you'll be on the team. What was that feeling just walking onto the field the first time?
Sorry, I missed that. Say it again.
So like you get that first call up to you're playing this week, mate, and walking on the field the first time. What's that feel like?
Yeah, so where it was like you have your training camp, and so you do your summer workouts and everything, and then you do the preseason games. So you've kind of got that sort of step into it where you're kind of playing games, but you're not on the team, you're still competing. So me and Brad were taking a half and a half, and you rolled through the preseason, and definitely pretty nervous. Like we had the Hall of Fame game, so we were like the first game of the preseason, and everyone's watching that game. There's nothing else on, and it's pretty stressful getting out there, but. I was kind of the mindset like, I've got nothing else going on. Just put everything into this and, go for it. Don't be nervous at all. And, just try to smash the balls as hard as I could. And, had a real good game that one. And, later in the preseason, hit some monster balls. So, managed to secure that position. And then, when you actually sort of find out you made the team, it's not so much no one comes and tells you how you're getting a run. It's not like, the AFL, you see they do the jumper presentation, all that. It's not like that. Like, everyone's on the team and the guy you compete with just won't be there. And so you just keep doing what you're doing, keep your head locked down and focus on what you're doing and you're going to be there. So, the way I found out, I was actually on like elliptical or something and Brad came through and just sort of said, "Grass, I'm out of here. I'll see you later." And that was about it. So, that's sort of a similar thing when I got let go and, just go down your locker and pick up all your stuff. And, went and saw Presley and I was like, "Hey, bud, keep it up. We'll see you later." And, it's kind of how it goes in the NFL. But not too big on making a big deal of it. It's just you're here, you're working out, you're on the team, let's go. And if someone's going to fall off, they'll be gone.
Yeah, shit, real cutthroat kind of stuff. When you mentioned bombing balls in Canton, when I imagine it's a little bit warmer and things like that. Heinz Field can get quite cold, I imagine. How did you go with I remember Max mentioning the frozen balls and walking away with bruised foot and can't kick for 4 or 5 days. How did you find it at Heinz Field where it's especially cold?
Yeah, it's definitely something you've got to adjust to. Like you can't really let it get in your head if you start thinking about it too much. That's going to cause you issues. But you've obviously got to be smart about it. So I would wear. You see a lot of guys wear thick tights underneath their jerseys, like their game pants and stuff, and I didn't like doing that because I felt it restricted my swing. So I just keep the same clothes I wore when it was 100 degrees out, when it was negative, whatever it was. So I'd wear sweatpants and on the sideline on top and just have cut up the backs a little bit so they're easy to get on and off. And you got those big jackets you chuck on over top, but you just got to get yourself nice and warm and toasty so that at least in the NFL they have those sideline heaters, the benches that heat it, so you can kind of find a little enclave off the sideline to keep yourself warm, and then do a couple of runs and leg swings and whatever and get quickly back in there and keep your body temp warm. But once you get called up, it's third down, you're dropping everything off and you're running out there, get lined up, hit the ball. And usually if you're smart about it, you've got yourself a minute or a minute and a half before you're actually getting cold. And your skin will get cold, but if you just pretend it isn't, you're going to be fine. But a couple of times I had games that were in the single digits and you go out there to punt and for whatever reason it's time out or quarter time or something, and then you're kind of stuck out there freezing for a while, and that's when it can be some trouble.
Yeah, bastards. Wilson, 2016 season or 2017 year it was. AFC game against Tom Brady. I don't know where were you watching this? This must have been one of the biggest games for Jordan. Where are you watching it and taking it all in?
We actually had a party at home. So we had a bunch of family over and everybody made it in, and it's pretty crazy to that's obviously one of the biggest games on the calendar, and everyone's tuned in, and to know that your brother's actually out there too, it's a pretty crazy feeling. But just back on those cold games, it's easier as a player. When we were out there in the crowd, it's way harder as a fan trying to watch that. So it was actually our second trip over as a family. We're all in Australia, and it was middle of summer, and we took off and it was about 40 degrees, and we ended up in Buffalo, New York to watch Steelers play the Bills. And it snowed from first quarter all the way through to the last. And we obviously only had one jacket, so we're absolutely freezing. And seeing them down there with their big jackets on and the heaters and everything, it's not fair.
Yeah, the best bit too is being the away team. They don't give you a good ticket. So we had corner of the stadium, the very back row. So not only were they cold, their backs are to the open fields out behind. So when wind comes in, they're sitting there just getting hit.
I love that you're just sitting there on the field, keeping warm with nice sweatpants and a jacket, thinking, "Yeah, they're freezing up there, but that's all right. They're here to watch me. It's all about me at this point in time." Did you? What was the coldest game that you would? Or because does Kentucky get cold? Like, are you punting in cold weather there as well? Like,
Yeah,
cold, but yeah.
we had one snow game this year, which like that's a bit of a rarity. You know, like playing in the SEC, it's usually pretty warm. But yeah, Jordan struggled. That was the first snow game in the crowd, so he can agree. It's harder as a fan.
And those Kentucky fans, they thinned out towards the end of that game because they weren't doing too well. And I was sitting there in the section by myself, and it was those ice cold metal benches was a bit chilly.
and you weren't sitting there in blue, obviously. You were sitting out there in purple or something.
Had my green Carhartt on. So.
Did you make sure, Wilson? I don't know. Do you get tickets the same in college ball? Did you make sure you're sitting right up the back, getting the nice cool breeze on his back?
They're a bit nicer in college. They usually give the families, usually a nice section next to our own
Plus
team.
home game too. You're getting good.
Smart.
Good
smart.
team.
Because there's a couple of single-digit games. Like we had the playoff game against Miami. I can't remember, was that 17, 18? Yeah. That was like 3 degrees when we had to warm up. The field was like rock solid. Like guys come out in cleats, can't get them in the turf, so guys come out in sneakers and running around. And we kind of knew we were in for a good day when I got out to warm up, and we stuck to our regular routine. Like don't want to change anything, keep your mindset right. So. We wore sweatpants, we stay smart. We did my punts, held the field goals for Boz and took a few snaps, and we're sort of hanging out in midfield, and we see the other team specialists come out, look at us like, "Oh, what do you got on, sweatpants?" All right, and they all jog back inside, and our offense and defense are getting warmed up. We're kind of done watching them, and still haven't seen the other team come out to warm up. And a couple of guys come out here, and then they disappear back inside. We're like, "Oh, these guys, they want to play today?" Like, it's something you got to be ready for and have the mindset right.
Yeah, they actually called a referee timeout during that game because the ref's whistle, the P inside the whistle had frozen over, so you couldn't hear him, so they had to call a timeout for him to warm the P in the whistle to back up.
And how they do it? There's a bit of warm water in there or something like that, or just blow it a bit harder, mate. Come on.
He had to run over the player's sideline. He's on the player's heater, like trying to get the P in the whistle moving.
So that game in 2017 it was, the AFC Championship game. What was it like for you? Because surely the atmosphere was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, no, it was real nuts. And then, sort of on top of being that game, my roommate from college was playing on the other team. So the two of us had like a little bet that whoever lost that game then had to pay for the tickets to the Super Bowl for our other roommate. So we had a little pressure added on top of everything else. So, it was a really, really exciting day. And, we also didn't do too great. And, didn't get the result we wanted, but it sort of reached that far through to even make it to that point. A lot of people don't even get close to that. So no, it's good experience.
And then you lost what, $4 or $5 for a ticket.
We get to buy them at the face value, so a lot cheaper than
I might keep that in mind when the Packers make it, and I'll hit you up. But you got to share the locker room with some pretty incredible players, such as Big Ben, Cam Hayward. Even in the last few years, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. What are these guys really like when behind the scenes, and how do they make it to be the next level kind of athlete?
Yeah, so like you've got guys from every different background in the NFL. Like you got me being an Australian guy coming through, then you've got guys from like the richest parts of the country, the poorest parts of the country. You've got guys from other countries overseas. So like I've had a couple of guys from Nigeria, one guy from South Africa. Couple Europeans. It's pretty wild, just that massive diversity of backgrounds and experiences everyone's got. Just the sort of common thing everyone has together is just absolute confidence in himself to be the best. And, if you don't have that confidence, you're not going to make it even close to being in that locker room. So like everyone in there is just, all about it, locked in. And the one difference you'll see then from college to NFL is just how professional guys are in terms of like their study habits and the understanding of the game. There's not guys slacking off. Like they'll get done with practice and then they'll go into meetings with coaches, and if not with coaches, they got their iPads and studying hard. And the guys who don't do that stuff, some of them might be able to make it through with raw talent and confidence, but they might only last for a year or two before it's really starting to get found out. The guys that are that top level that hang on for a long time, really study hard, lock in on the game, practice properly, really work with their coaches to understand what they want from them to get those game plans rolling. Because to have a good team, you need we've got 65 guys on the team. You really need everyone to be locked in on their part of the game, doing what they do well, and just not getting distracted by what else is going on around them, and just being confident that what they do is valuable to the team and is an important part of the team.
And Big Ben is one that I can't get not get my head around him, but like whenever you speak about the Steelers, it is Big Ben. Like he's such an aura around him. Is he really like that in the locker rooms, or is he like not a down to earth Aussie obviously, but what kind of bloke is he when you sit down with him?
Yeah, he's been around for a long time. Older guy, like when I first got there, you're 20 something, he's 30 something already. There's got that sort of older group that sort of hang out together. And definitely as you're there longer time, and you sort of by the time I left, I was there's only two other guys that had been there longer than me, so he's sort of in that older group, and he's definitely one of the leaders in the locker room. I sit with mainly the defensive guys, so my locker was actually next to Cam Haywood, who's sort of the leader of the team for the defense. So you got guys like that that are sort of around a lot more. That he's a real strong leader of the team, and they just sort of do a good job of getting everyone fired up and on the same page.
Yeah, awesome. I've got a couple more questions to finish off, boys, but just before we get there, I just want to really thank you for your time, being so generous. You've got families, you've got kids, and it's late over there for you boys, so I really do appreciate you just giving up your time and being so giving with all the questions and the answers as well. So really do appreciate it. But Wilson, we'll get to you for the next 5 years, mate. What does life look like for Bangers?
I mean, my son turns 1 next week, so that's a pretty big milestone. And I mean, family man first. So next 5 years might mean a few more kids. Got to catch up to Jordan. And then just finishing school, and a few big years of footy left, and excited to see where it takes me. Really, the next 2 years will be the stepping stones for what comes after.
Is NFL the goal?
Definitely. It's going to be a big year. I've sort of been the half man for the last 2 years, so hopefully this year I'll take over the reins, and it's a chance to sort of show me wares.
Yeah. And having, obviously, Jordan's gone through the system and knowing what you need to do and who you need to be in contact with, is that obviously going to help you going forward with that?
Yeah, definitely. I remember, Max's pro day, Coach Danny Smith was there. He was the Steelers special teams guy, and he came over and had a big chat. So, sort of, obviously having a brother that's been to the top, you build those connections, and it'll be a fun next few years.
And George, what about you? You're currently free agent, is that right?
Did my shoulder again a little while back, so still rehabbing that surgery.
Are you going to tell him how you did it?
I went and played some footy, and
I did see there was a photo of you. Was it the Columbia Cats or something like that? Is that
Columbus? I just rolled down there. I was like, all right, who needs someone? And played a couple of games of footy here and there, and I had got a bad shoulder. I dislocated it 3 times when I was in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't great, and had a surgery on it previously. But went out there and jumped up in the ruck, had a good swing on the ball, and my arm kept going with football. So so just getting that fixed up. But hadn't had any leads on the team for a while. So just get myself ready. When I had a kick this morning with a couple of guys up in Cincinnati. McQuaid is the snapper this year up at Detroit, and Robbins, who's the guy who just got picked up in Cincinnati, so just went out to kick with them. Just hang out in case any jobs pop open. But otherwise, I'll just be hanging out in Kentucky and enjoying life with the kids and the wife.
the dream by the sounds of it?
Yeah.
What about, it does sound like, especially with the parents coming over, are we ever going to see you back in Australia's shores, or have you guys pretty well settled over there?
For me, I'm not going back. My wife's from here, her family's in the area. I've got a lot of friends from college in this area. It's a really good spot, and like the house I've got, it's effectively a mansion, and then you take that same amount of money in Melbourne. I'm living in a 2-bedroom townhome, so just the quality of life you get for your money around this area especially is not something that I'd want to part with just to be able to go back to Melbourne. You have to start all over again, especially with the wife and all that. You'd have to start over with friends and family and everything. So, I'll just stay around here. I enjoy it.
What about you, Wilson? We have Jimmy Ferry over here who said that you better stay over there because he's a better footballer than you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jimmy was pretty good. I'll give him that. Yeah, there's actually a few good photos of him. He used to like just jump over everybody. I remember it was actually my first game at Essendon, and he was obviously the key defender, and I was the back pocket. And they did the old switch, and Tom Boyd's ended up on me, and he's taking me straight to the square. And I remember just being like, Jimmy, please come back to me.
Nice.
Yeah,
Are you going to stay over there, or are you coming home?
No, there'll be a chance. There'll be a chance. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. You know, you never know what happens, but I won't rule anything out in the future. Still could be a Category B rookie. So, I don't know.
And the Bombers are looking for a few players. They just struggled the last few weeks. So, but honestly, I hope we don't see you in the next few years, and it means that you've gone on and you're in the NFL and punting. Hopefully, maybe up at Pittsburgh by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we're up there.
Yeah, maybe somewhere warmer.
Maybe down in Miami, although as George said, that Miami don't like playing in those cold games, and they're getting a bit of a reputation about that, I reckon.
Yeah.
Nah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, I do appreciate your time, boys, and I hope that we can have you back on again in a few years and speak to you about your glistening NFL career.
Yeah. No, sounds good. No, thanks for having us, and yeah, cheers for the chat.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll definitely keep in touch, lads.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.